Before we delve into this story, please be advised that it contains mature themes and may be unsettling for some listeners. Every town has its secrets, but Oakhaven was built on them. A picturesque, postcard-perfect New England town, where generations of wealth and impeccable manners cast long shadows over cobblestone streets and meticulously manicured lawns. Everyone knew the legends of the founding families, the Ashtons, the Blackwoods, the Caldwells, their unwavering commitment to tradition, their philanthropic legacies, their quiet, almost regal control. They were the bedrock, the very soul of Oakhaven. But what if that bedrock wasn't just about preserving history? What if it was about preserving a lie? And what if uncovering that lie meant disappearing into the very silence it was built to protect? Emily Hayes had always been drawn to the hidden narratives. Not the grand, celebrated histories, but the whispers between the lines, the forgotten footnotes. A freelance investigative journalist with a sharp mind and an even sharper intuition, Emily had returned to Oakhaven, her childhood home, for a seemingly innocuous project, a local history piece commissioned by the Oakhaven Historical Society. Her task was to chronicle the lesser-known contributions of the town's esteemed founding families, to paint a more intimate portrait of their civic pride and community spirit. It was meant to be a simple feel-good story. It quickly became anything but. Her research led her deep into the archives of the Oakhaven Public Library, a stately stone edifice that smelled of old paper and forgotten dreams. Days turned into weeks, sifting through dusty ledgers, faded photographs, and painstakingly preserved personal correspondence. Most of it was mundane, exactly what you'd expect from a town proud of its heritage, until she found it. Tucked away in a mislabeled box, behind a collection of Reverend Elias Caldwell's sermons from the late 1700s, was a small, leather-bound journal. Its cover was blank, its pages brittle with age, and its contents chillingly cryptic. It wasn't a personal diary, not in the traditional sense. It was a series of entries, written in a precise, almost calligraphic hand, detailing what appeared to be meetings. Meetings not of town council or church committees, but something far more clandestine. Each entry began with a single unsettling phrase. The pledge was renewed. The pledge. The words echoed in Emily's mind. What pledge? The town's historical record spoke of a covenant of Oakhaven, a public agreement signed by the original settlers to uphold moral integrity and community welfare. But this journal, dated almost a century after the covenant, described something different, something darker. It detailed rituals, sacrifices, not of life but of truth, of memory. It spoke of the keeping, the silencing, and the bloodlines bind. The names mentioned weren't just the Ashtons, Blackwoods, and Caldwells. There were others, prominent families long since faded from public record, or perhaps deliberately erased. As Emily transcribed the archaic script, a cold dread began to settle in her stomach. The quaint, charming history she was supposed to write was a meticulously constructed illusion. Beneath it pulsed a current of something ancient, something demanding, something that had been upheld for centuries in the shadows of Oakhaven. She started noticing things. The way certain townsfolk, descendants of the founding families, would subtly shift their gaze when she mentioned the early history. The sudden, unexplained maintenance closures of certain sections of the library archives she was planning to visit. The unsettling feeling that she wasn't just reading history. She was intruding on a very active, very dangerous secret. The truth about Oakhaven, about the pledge of the founding families, was far more sinister than any story she could have imagined. And she had just opened the first page. A chill sharper than any autumn breeze snaked its way down Sarah's spine, gripping her with an icy dread. The old leather-bound journal, heavy and silent in her hands, no longer felt like a historical artifact. It was a live wire, humming with a dangerous, unseen current. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the sudden, oppressive silence of the study. She stared at the faded ink, at the elegant looping script that detailed not just the past, but a horrifying ongoing present. The pledge. The words echoed in her mind, stripped of their initial innocent historical context. This wasn't some quaint, forgotten agreement among settlers. It was a covenant, dark and binding, that stretched across generations. The journal entries, meticulously dated, didn't stop in the distant past. They continued, sometimes with gaps of years, sometimes months, but always returning to the chilling refrain of the harvest, the offering, and the renewal. And the most recent entry, dated just 3 months prior, was a terse, almost celebratory note about the preparation for the next cycle. Sarah's breath hitched. Preparation? Cycle? What did that even mean? Her mind, trained to dissect historical texts, struggled to reconcile these words with anything benign. The journal wasn't a record of a bygone era. It was a chronicle of a living, breathing, monstrous secret. She scanned the names again. Miller, Thorne, Blackwood, Carmichael, and yes, even Finch, her own family name, listed among the signatories of this terrifying pledge. A cold sweat broke out on her forehead. Her ancestors. What had they done? What were they still doing? The cozy study, filled with the comforting scent of old books and polished wood, suddenly felt menacing. Every shadow seemed to deepen, every creak of the house to whisper secrets. Sarah felt an irrational urge to throw the journal across the room, to flee Oakhaven and never look back. But a stronger, more unsettling impulse held her captive. The insatiable hunger of a scholar for truth, now laced with a primal fear. She had to know. She had to understand. She carefully closed the journal, its weight now an unsettling presence. Her hands trembled slightly as she placed it back on the shelf, camouflaged among other innocuous-looking tomes. The thought of leaving it exposed, even for a moment, sent a shiver through her. If this secret was so active, so dangerous, then the last thing she needed was for someone to know she had found it. Over the next few days, Oakhaven, once a picturesque haven, transformed into a landscape of veiled threats in Sarah's eyes. The friendly smiles of the townsfolk seemed to hold a new, unsettling glint. The polite nods of the elders, people she had admired for their preservation of the town's history, now felt like silent judgments. Were they all part of this? Did they all know? She found herself observing everything with a heightened sense of paranoia. The way Michael, the kind-faced greengrocer, lingered a little too long when she bought apples. The way Emily, the elegant woman who ran the antique shop, always seemed to be watching her from across the town square. Even David, the local handyman who had fixed her leaky faucet last week, seemed to cast a lingering glance her way as he drove past her house. It could be nothing, she told herself. Just her imagination, inflamed by a disturbing discovery. But the feeling persisted, a cold knot in her stomach. Driven by an urgent need for answers, Sarah returned to the Oakhaven Historical Society, not as a casual researcher, but as someone hunting for a hidden truth. She started with the town's founding documents, searching for any anomalies, any coded language, anything that could shed light on the pledge. She pored over old land deeds, census records, and even local newspaper archives, meticulously cross-referencing names from the journal with historical events. The deeper she delved, the more she noticed a pattern. The founding families Miller, Thorne, Blackwood, Carmichael, Finch consistently held positions of power and influence throughout Oakhaven's history. They owned the most prosperous businesses, served on every significant town council, and their names appeared on every plaque and monument. Their prosperity was undeniable, almost unnaturally consistent, even through economic downturns that crippled surrounding towns. One afternoon, while sifting through a dusty box of uncatalogued photographs in the Historical Society's back room, Sarah stumbled upon a series of old town fair pictures. They were from the late 1800s, early 1900s, depicting cheerful crowds, games, and stalls. But what caught her eye was a recurring motif. A strange symbol, a stylized oak leaf intertwined with a serpent, emblazoned on banners, carved into wooden stands, and even worn as pins by some of the town elders in the photos. It was the same symbol subtly etched into the inside cover of the leather journal she had found in her study. A jolt went through her. This wasn't just a family secret. It was a town-wide symbol openly displayed, yet utterly obscure to outsiders like herself. She had seen similar oak leaf motifs around Oakhaven, carved into the old town hall doors, or adorning the wrought iron gates of the wealthier estates, but she dismissed them as quaint local iconography. Now, with the serpent intertwined, it took on a sinister resonance. It was a mark, a brand. As she was examining one of the photographs, a shadow fell over her. She looked up, startled, to see Mr. Henderson, the Historical Society's longtime curator, standing silently beside her. His gaze was fixed on the photograph in her hand. Mr. Henderson was a soft-spoken man, well into his 70s, with wispy white hair and a gentle demeanor. He usually welcomed her research with quiet enthusiasm. "Ah, the old Harvest Festival photos," he said, his voice a little too calm, a little too even. "A beautiful tradition, wasn't it?" celebrated the town's bounty. Sarah forced a smile, trying to appear nonchalant. Yes, it is. I noticed this symbol, she said, pointing to the oak leaf and serpent. It's quite striking. What does it represent? Mr. Henderson's eyes, usually twinkling with historical anecdotes, seemed to cloud over. He hesitated for a fraction of a second, a pause imperceptible to anyone not already on edge. Oh, that, he said finally. Just an old emblem. The founding families used it. Represents strength and wisdom, you know. Nothing more. His gaze lingered on her, a strange intensity in his usually mild eyes. Still digging into the town's past, Miss Finch? Always, Mr. Henderson, Sarah replied, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. There's so much rich history here. Indeed, he said slowly. But one must be careful not to disturb what is best left undisturbed. The words hung in the air, a thinly veiled warning that sent a fresh wave of dread through her. He then offered a polite, almost practiced smile and shuffled away, leaving Sarah alone with the unsettling weight of his words and the chilling symbol in the photograph. That night, the feeling of being watched intensified. As she sat in her living room, ostensibly reading, her eyes kept darting to the windows. The streetlights cast long dancing shadows, turning familiar trees into monstrous figures. A car drove past her house slowly, then seemed to circle the block before disappearing. Her heart pounded. It could be anyone, she reasoned, but the paranoia was relentless. She couldn't shake the image of the oak leaf and serpent, or the journal's cryptic references to the harvest and the offering. She pulled out her laptop and began searching online, but found nothing linking Oakhaven to any dark rituals or unusual historical practices. It was as if the internet, for all its vastness, had a blind spot when it came to the town's deepest secrets. Frustrated but undeterred, she decided to re-examine her family's own history in Oakhaven. Perhaps there was something in her ancestors' personal effects, some clue that the journal had merely hinted at. She remembered an old cedar chest in the attic, filled with her grandmother's keepsakes. It was a long shot, but she was desperate. Climbing into the dusty attic, the air thick with the scent of mothballs and aged paper, Sarah found the chest tucked away in a corner. She unlatched it, revealing a treasure trove of antique lace, yellowed photographs, and bundles of letters tied with faded ribbons. As she sifted through them, a small leather-bound diary, much smaller than the intimidating journal she had found earlier, caught her eye. It looked like a personal journal, not a formal record. She opened it, her fingers trembling. The handwriting was her grandmother's, unmistakable. The entries were mostly mundane, everyday observations, until she reached a page near the middle dated just a few weeks before her grandmother's sudden, unexplained death. The entry was short, scrawled almost frantically. The harvest is coming. I can feel it. The whispers grow louder, the shadows longer. They say it's for the good of Oakhaven, for the renewal, but the price is too high. I saw the symbol again on old Mr. Miller's gate. It's real. It's always been real. And they know I know. Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. Her grandmother hadn't died of natural causes. She had known something, had seen something, and it had cost her everything. The pledge of the founding families wasn't just a secret. It was a deadly trap, and Sarah had just walked right into it, following the faint, terrifying trail of breadcrumbs her grandmother had left behind. The harvest. It wasn't a historical event. It was an impending doom, and it was coming for Oakhaven. And now she realized with bone-chilling clarity, it was coming for her too. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat echoing the terror that had just seized her. The room, once a sanctuary of discovery, now felt like a tomb, its shadows stretching long and menacing. The air grew heavy, thick with the unspoken horrors her grandmother, Martha, had unearthed and then, tragically, become entangled in. This wasn't just history. It was a living, breathing nightmare. She stared at the word harvest scrawled repeatedly, violently, across the margins of Martha's journal. Each stroke seemed to pulse with a dark energy, a warning from beyond the grave. Emily's mind reeled, trying to reconcile the idyllic Oakhaven she knew with this horrifying revelation. The quaint traditions, the close-knit community, the annual celebrations, were they all just elaborate disguises for something ancient and sinister? Her fingers trembled as she reached for the worn leather-bound book again, flipping through the pages, desperate for more. There had to be something, a detail, a name, a date, anything that could give her a clearer picture of what the harvest truly was. But Martha's entries grew increasingly cryptic, fragmented thoughts, half-finished sentences, as if she'd been writing under duress or in a desperate hurry. The cycles continue. The chosen. The soil demands its due. One entry read, followed by a crude drawing of a stylized tree with deep roots, almost like grasping claws. Another mentioned, they watch. Always watching. The founders' blood runs thick. The founders. The four families whose names were etched into the town's very foundations. The Caldwells, the Thorncrofts, the Blackwoods, and the Sterlinghays. Emily knew them. Everyone in Oakhaven knew them. They were the pillars of the community, the benefactors, the ones who organized the annual festivals, the ones who owned most of the businesses. Mr. Caldwell ran the bank, Mrs. Thorncroft headed the Historical Society, Mr. Blackwood owned the largest timber company, and the Sterlinghays family. They were the most elusive, their sprawling estate on the outskirts of town rarely seen by outsiders, their wealth seemingly endless and their influence absolute. A cold dread seeped into her bones. Could these revered families, the very architects of Oakhaven's prosperity, be the orchestrators of this harvest? It sounded like something out of a Gothic horror novel, not the quiet, charming town she had called home her entire life. Yet, the evidence, however sparse and terrifying, was staring her in the face. Emily's gaze fell upon a small, faded photograph tucked between 2 pages of the journal. It was old, black and white, depicting a group of stern-faced men and women in period attire, standing before a newly constructed building. Below it, Martha had scrawled, "The original signatories. The pledge." And underneath that, almost invisible unless you looked closely, was a single chilling word: sacrifice. The original signatories. The founding families. The pledge. Sacrifice. The pieces clicked into place with a sickening thud. The benign pledge of the founding families wasn't just a historical document. It was a pact, a dark covenant that bound the town to a horrifying tradition. She needed to talk to someone. But who? Her parents? They dismiss it as her grandmother's eccentric ramblings, a product of her declining mental state before her disappearance. The local sheriff, Sheriff Miller, was practically an extension of the Caldwell family, a lifelong resident who revered the founders. No one in Oakhaven would believe her, not without irrefutable proof, and all she had were cryptic notes and a growing sense of terror. Emily knew she couldn't go to the authorities, not yet. Not when the authorities themselves might be complicit. She had to find more. She had to understand the nature of this harvest before she could even think about exposing it. Her eyes scanned the room, now searching with a new desperate intensity. Martha had been hiding things not just from the town but from her own family. Was there anything else? A hidden compartment? A loose floorboard? Her grandmother had always been meticulous, but also profoundly secretive when she deemed it necessary. She remembered a story her mother used to tell about Martha's fascination with old puzzles and hidden mechanisms. "Your grandma could find a secret in a brick wall," her mother would say with a fond shake of her head. Emily began to systematically search the study, starting with the desk. She ran her hands along the underside of drawers, felt for false backs, tapped the wooden panels. Nothing. Next, she moved to the bookshelves, running her fingers over the spines of countless dusty tomes. History books, local lore, botany, astrology. Martha had an eclectic taste. Emily paused at a section dedicated to local Oakhaven history. Most of these were published by the Oakhaven Historical Society, headed by Mrs. Thorncroft. Convenient. She pulled out a thick leather-bound volume titled Oakhaven, a chronicle of prosperity. It was a glowing account of the town's growth, heavily featuring the benevolent contributions of the founding families. As she flipped through it, a loose, yellowed newspaper clipping fluttered to the floor. Emily picked it up. It was from the Oakhaven Gazette, dated nearly 70 years ago. The headline read, "Famed botanist Dr. Elias Vance disappears from Oakhaven estate." The article detailed the sudden vanishing of a renowned botanist who had been visiting the Sterlinghays estate to study a rare species of oak tree. The police have found no trace, no struggle, just an abandoned research facility, and a note hinting at a profound discovery that could change everything. Martha had underlined a sentence in the article. Dr. Vance was particularly interested in the unique soil composition found only within the Sterlinghays property, rumored to possess unusual regenerative properties. Unique soil composition, regenerative properties, the stylized tree drawing in Martha's journal, the words "the soil demands its due." It was all starting to coalesce into something far more chilling than she could have ever imagined. Was the harvest literal? Was it about the land itself? And what did disappearing botanists and regenerative properties have to do with it? A sudden sharp rap on the front door shattered the silence, sending a jolt of pure adrenaline through Emily. She froze, the newspaper clipping clutched in her hand, her heart hammering. Who could it be? She wasn't expecting anyone. Her parents were still out. The knocking came again, louder this time, more insistent. Emily crept to the window, peering cautiously through a gap in the curtains. A sleek black sedan was parked in the driveway, its tinted windows obscuring the driver. But the figure standing on her porch was unmistakable. It was Mr. Caldwell. He stood tall and imposing, impeccably dressed as always in a tailored suit, his silver hair neatly combed. His face, usually a mask of genial authority, seemed sharper tonight. His eyes, even from this distance, held an intensity that made Emily shiver. He wasn't smiling. She ducked back, her mind racing. Mr. Caldwell rarely visited anyone, let alone unannounced. He was the patriarch of the Caldwell family, the very embodiment of Oakhaven's old money and power. And he was one of the founding families. Why was he here? Now, did he know what she was doing? Had he somehow found out she was digging into Martha's secrets? The thought sent a fresh wave of panic through her. She was exposed, vulnerable. The knocking began a third time, slow and deliberate, each thud echoing like a death knell in the quiet house. Emily's breath hitched. She couldn't pretend not to be home. Her car was in the driveway. The lights were on. She was trapped. She quickly shoved the newspaper clipping and Martha's journal back into the hidden compartment, trying to make the room appear undisturbed. Her hands were shaking so badly she fumbled with the latch. Finally it clicked shut. She smoothed the rug over it, trying to calm her racing pulse. She took a deep, shaky breath, trying to compose herself. She had to appear normal, unsuspecting. She had to be careful. As she walked towards the front door, every step felt heavy, as if she were wading through thick mud. The air grew colder with each passing moment, an icy premonition chilling her to the bone. This wasn't a friendly visit. This was something else entirely. She reached the door, her hand hovering over the doorknob. Her heart pounded, a frantic drum against her ribs. She could feel his presence on the other side. A silent, watchful wait. Slowly, she turned the knob and pulled the door open, forcing a polite, if strained, smile onto her face. "Mr. Caldwell," she managed, her voice barely a whisper. "What a surprise." His gaze swept over her, sharp and assessing, before settling on her eyes. There was no warmth in them, only an unnerving depth. "Emily," he said, his voice smooth and resonant, yet with an underlying steel that sent a shiver down her spine. "I believe we need to talk about your grandmother." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning, sealing her fate. She was no longer just an innocent granddaughter trying to understand her family's past. She was now a player in Oakhaven's dark game, and Mr. Caldwell had just made it clear. She was being watched. And her grandmother's secrets were far from buried. They were alive and they were dangerous. The unsettling chill from Mr. Caldwell's words lingered in the air long after he'd gone, seeping into Emily's bones. The pleasant afternoon light now seemed to mock her, casting long, distorted shadows that danced like watchful eyes. She stood by the window, clutching the mug, its warmth doing little to dispel the icy grip of fear. He hadn't just paid a courtesy call. He'd delivered a stark, undeniable warning. She was being watched. And her grandmother, Sarah, wasn't just a woman with a past. She was a woman whose secrets were actively being guarded, protected by people like Caldwell, people who knew the pledge and weren't afraid to use it as a threat. The image of the strange, swirling symbol from her grandmother's journal flashed in her mind. It wasn't just a doodle. It was a mark, a brand, a key to whatever dangerous game Caldwell had just confirmed she was now playing. She closed her eyes, taking a shaky breath. This wasn't some abstract historical curiosity anymore. This was personal. This was immediate. And if Caldwell was to be believed, it was deadly. She had to go back to the journal. Every word, every cryptic drawing, every date now held a deeper, more sinister weight. She retrieved the worn leather book from its hiding place, her fingers trembling slightly as she opened it to the page with the symbol. She traced its intricate lines, a knot tightening in her stomach. Caldwell had mentioned the pledge. Could this symbol be related? Was it a seal, an emblem of this mysterious pact? Emily flipped through the initial pages, rereading Sarah's early entries, searching for anything she might have dismissed as artistic flourish or tangential thought. Her grandmother's handwriting, usually so fluid and graceful, occasionally took on a hurried, almost frantic quality. There were several instances where the symbol appeared, not just on that one page, but subtly, almost imperceptibly, in the margins of other entries, sometimes even incorporated into what looked like decorative borders around significant dates or names. One such instance caught her eye. On a page dated October 27, 1978, the symbol was drawn next to the name Thomas Miller. Below it, in smaller, almost cramped script, Sarah had written, "He knows. Aesop. The original. Thomas Miller." The name sent a jolt through Emily. She hadn't seen it before. Or rather, she hadn't registered it. Who was Thomas Miller and what did he know? What was the original? The original pledge? The original document? And why was her grandmother so concerned about him seeing it? This was a new thread, a fragile lifeline in the suffocating web of Oakhaven's secrets. Her gaze then fell on another detail she'd previously overlooked. Hidden on the inside back cover of the journal, tucked into a small, almost invisible pocket, was a faded, brittle newspaper clipping. The headline, yellowed with age, read, "Oakhaven Founders Day Centennial Celebration, October 27, 1978. Her breath hitched. The same date, the day Sarah had noted Thomas Miller, and the original. Founders Day. It clicked into place with horrifying clarity. The founding families, the pledge. It all revolved around Oakhaven's deep, almost sacred history. The article itself was a mundane piece, detailing the town parade, speeches by local dignitaries, and a historical reenactment. But one paragraph stood out, describing a special exhibit at the Oakhaven Historical Society, showcasing artifacts from the town's earliest days, including the original charter of Oakhaven, signed by the 7 founding families, and the ceremonial Pledge of Unity document. A chill snaked down Emily's spine. The Pledge of Unity. Caldwell's words echoed in her ears. Could this be it? The very document her grandmother had been so worried about Thomas Miller seeing? And why would seeing a public historical document be so dangerous? Unless there was something more to it. Something hidden, something not meant for public consumption. She had to see that document. The Oakhaven Historical Society was housed in the old Carnegie Library building, a grand, imposing structure of gray stone that sat on the edge of town, usually quiet and sparsely visited. It was exactly the kind of place where secrets could be both displayed and buried. Emily made her way to the library, the late afternoon sun casting long, ominous shadows. Every passing car, every person on the street, seemed to hold her gaze a moment too long. She felt the prickle of invisible eyes on her back, a constant, gnawing unease that Caldwell's warning had instilled. She pulled her jacket tighter, trying to appear nonchalant, but her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. The library's heavy oak doors groaned as she pushed them open, the sound echoing in the cavernous main hall. The air inside was cool and still, thick with the scent of old paper and dust. To her left was the main reading room, to her right, a smaller section marked Oakhaven Archives and Local History. She headed directly for it. Behind a high, polished counter sat a woman with silver hair pulled back in a neat bun, peering over spectacles at a thick book. Her name tag read, Mrs. Eleanor Vance, Archivist. She looked up as Emily approached, her expression a mix of polite curiosity and mild surprise at seeing a young face in her usually quiet domain. "Can I help you, dear?" Mrs. Vance asked, her voice soft but clear. "Yes, Mrs. Vance," Emily began, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'm Emily Hayes. I'm doing some research on Oakhaven's history, specifically the founding families. I was hoping to view the original town charter and the Pledge of Unity document, if they're available." Mrs. Vance's pleasant smile faltered, just for a fraction of a second. Her eyes, magnified by her glasses, seemed to sharpen, studying Emily with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "The Pledge of Unity?" she repeated, a slight tremor in her voice. "That's an interesting request. Not many people ask for that one these days. Most are content with the general history. My grandmother, Sarah Hayes, was quite interested in local history," Emily explained, testing the waters. "She kept a journal and she mentioned it. I'm trying to follow up on some of her notes." At the mention of Sarah Hayes, a flicker of something unreadable, recognition, concern, crossed Mrs. Vance's face. She paused, her gaze drifting towards a large, framed portrait of Oakhaven's founders hanging on the wall behind Emily. Sarah Hayes, she murmured almost to herself. Yes, she was a very dedicated historian, always asking the right questions. The emphasis on right was subtle, but Emily caught it. Please have a seat. Mrs. Vance gestured to a large wooden table. The charter and the pledge are kept in a special climate-controlled vault. It will take me a moment to retrieve them. They're quite delicate. As Mrs. Vance disappeared behind a heavy metal-clad door, Emily's heart pounded. Mrs. Vance's reaction, the slight hesitation, the knowing look, it all confirmed that the pledge was more than just a historical relic. It was something significant, something guarded. Minutes later, Mrs. Vance returned, carefully pushing a cart laden with 2 large, flat archival boxes. She placed them gently on the table. These are irreplaceable, she warned, her voice hushed. Gloves are in the drawer. Emily donned the thin cotton gloves. The first box contained the town charter, a magnificent document on vellum, with elaborate calligraphy and the bold signatures of the 7 founding families. It was impressive, but it offered no immediate answers beyond what she already knew about the families. Then she opened the second box. Inside lay a slightly smaller, yet equally ancient document. This was the Pledge of Unity. Her breath hitched. The parchment was thick, its surface slightly uneven. The text, written in a formal, almost ceremonial hand, spoke of unity, prosperity, and a shared future for Oakhaven. It listed the 7 founding families again, and below their names, their signatures were arranged in a circle, almost like a protective seal. But it wasn't the text or the signatures that made Emily gasp. It was what lay at the very center of that circle of signatures. Etched subtly into the parchment, almost as if it had been pressed into the paper with a heated stamp, was the swirling, intricate symbol from her grandmother's journal. It was identical, unmistakable, and seeing it there on this ancient foundational document sent a wave of understanding and dread through her. This symbol wasn't just a personal mark of her grandmother's. It was the mark of the pledge itself. It was the heart of Oakhaven's deepest secret. As Emily leaned closer, her eyes scanning the document, she noticed something else. Along the bottom edge of the parchment, almost invisible unless you knew to look for it, were faint, uneven indentations. Not handwriting, but a series of small, almost imperceptible pinpricks forming a pattern. It looked like a series of tiny holes meticulously placed. A code? A map? A hidden message? She couldn't tell. Just as she was about to examine the pinpricks more closely, a shadow fell over the document. Mrs. Vance had returned, her expression unreadable. Fascinating, isn't it? She said, her voice a little too casual. The history of our town right there. Emily looked up, meeting Mrs. Vance's gaze. There was a knowing glint in the archivist's eyes, a hint of something deeper beneath the surface of her polite demeanor. Mrs. Vance wasn't just an archivist, she was a guardian, and she knew exactly what Emily was looking for and perhaps why. The feeling of being watched intensified, not just from the unseen eyes outside, but from the quiet, silver-haired woman standing beside her. Emily had found the symbol, found its place at the heart of the pledge, but she was no closer to understanding its true meaning. In fact, she had only uncovered more layers to Oakhaven's dangerous secrets, and she was certain that Mrs. Vance, like Mr. Caldwell, was a keeper of those secrets. And Emily, by daring to look, was now squarely in their sights. The realization hit Emily with the force of a physical blow. She wasn't just an outsider looking in. She was now an active participant in a game she hadn't even known existed, a game with stakes far higher than a historical article. Her carefully constructed world, where secrets were dusty facts to be uncovered, crumbled around her. These weren't just old families with eccentric traditions, they were guardians of a dangerous secret, and she, by daring to tug at the threads, had become a loose end. And Oakhaven, the picturesque town she'd come to love, suddenly felt like a cage. The drive back to her apartment was a blur of heightened senses. Every car that passed, every shadow that flickered in her peripheral vision, felt like a potential threat. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat of fear and adrenaline. She locked her apartment door with an almost desperate click, then double-checked it, a primal instinct for self-preservation kicking in. The comfortable silence of her small living room now felt oppressive, as if the walls themselves were listening. She tried to rationalize, to tell herself she was overreacting, that Mrs. Vance's words were just the ramblings of an old woman protective of her family's past. But the chilling certainty in Vance's eyes, the subtle shift in her demeanor, the way Mr. Caldwell had seemed to appear out of nowhere at the library, all painted a different, much darker picture. They weren't just being secretive, they were being protective in an active, almost menacing way. Emily paced, her mind racing, trying to piece together the fragments. The pledge, the founding families, the sacrifice. What did it all mean? And why were they so intent on keeping it buried? She picked up her phone, her fingers hovering over David's contact. She needed to tell someone who wasn't entangled in Oakhaven's web. But even as she considered it, a wave of doubt washed over her. How would she explain it? "Hey David, I think the town's founding families are involved in some ancient, dangerous conspiracy, and I'm pretty sure they're watching me." He'd think she'd finally cracked under the pressure of her research. He'd probably tell her to take a break, to get some sleep. The thought of his well-meaning but ultimately dismissive reaction only deepened her sense of isolation. No, she couldn't go to David, not yet. Not without more concrete proof. The next few days were a torment of paranoia. Every creak of the floorboards in her building, every unfamiliar car parked on her street, every prolonged glance from a stranger felt like a confirmation of her fears. She found herself constantly looking over her shoulder, her sleep a restless cycle of unsettling dreams. She started taking different routes to the coffee shop, to the grocery store, convinced she was being followed, even though she could never quite identify anyone. It was a suffocating feeling, the sense of unseen eyes tracking her every move. Despite the fear, a stubborn resolve began to solidify within her. She couldn't back down. Not now. The very fact that they were trying so hard to hide it meant there was something truly significant, truly dark, buried beneath Oakhaven's pristine surface. And she was determined to find it. But this time she would be smarter, more careful. Her first step was to return to the Historical Society, but with a new strategy. Instead of focusing on the pledge directly, she would research the founding families themselves. Who exactly were they? Beyond Caldwell and Vance, who else had been instrumental in Oakhaven's establishment and continued prosperity? She spent hours sifting through old town ledgers, property deeds, and genealogical records, meticulously noting down names that appeared repeatedly in positions of power and influence from the earliest days of the settlement. Slowly, a pattern emerged. The Caldwells and Vances were indeed prominent, but so were families like the Thorns, who owned vast tracts of land and several key businesses, and the Blackwoods, whose name appeared on countless civic projects and charitable endowments throughout the centuries. These four families, she noticed, seemed intertwined in every significant historical event, every major decision, every shift in Oakhaven's economic and social landscape. They were the undisputed bedrock of the town, their roots running deeper than anyone else's. As she delved deeper, she began to notice something else: discrepancies, or rather absences. Certain periods in the town's early history were remarkably sparse in documented detail, particularly around the time of the original settlement and then again in the late 1800s. It was as if entire chunks of information had been deliberately omitted or, even more chillingly, removed. Any mention of the pledge was non-existent in public records, but the veiled language she'd seen in the Caldwell family journals now made sense. It wasn't meant for public consumption. One evening, after another tense day of research, Emily returned to her apartment to find something subtly amiss. Nothing was overtly stolen, no drawers pulled open, no obvious signs of forced entry. But her favorite bookmark, which she distinctly remembered leaving in her current novel on the bedside table, was now lying on the floor in the living room. Her curtains, which she always drew closed before leaving, were slightly ajar. It was a small, almost imperceptible disturbance, but precisely because of its subtlety, it felt like a chilling message. Asterisk, we know you're here. We know what you're doing. Asterisk. Panic flared, cold and sharp. This wasn't just paranoia anymore. This was real. Someone had been in her apartment. Someone connected to the families. She spent the rest of the night huddled in her armchair, a kitchen knife clutched in her hand, staring at the door, every nerve on edge. Sleep was impossible. The next morning, exhaustion warring with renewed determination, Emily knew she couldn't stop. The intrusion, rather than deterring her, had ignited a furious resolve. They wanted her to stop? Then she would dig deeper, faster. She returned to the Historical Society, her eyes now sharper, her focus narrower. She went straight for the oldest, most obscure periodicals, the ones rarely consulted. She needed something that wouldn't be easily scrubbed from the official records, something that might have slipped through the cracks. Hours passed. She found mentions of the Caldwells, Vances, Thorns, and Blackwoods everywhere. Then, tucked away in an unbound collection of a local gazette from 1887, a small faded article caught her eye. It wasn't on the front page, but buried deep within, almost an afterthought. The headline read, "Founders Day Gala a resounding success, oaths renewed." The article described a lavish annual ceremony attended by the town's elite, specifically naming the 4 families she had identified. It spoke of a sacred tradition and oaths of loyalty being renewed, ensuring Oakhaven's continued prosperity and protection from outside influences. The language was flowery and vague, but Emily's blood ran cold. Oaths renewed. This wasn't just a historical document. It was a living, breathing tradition. But it was a tiny, almost insignificant paragraph further down that made her heart pound. It mentioned, almost as a side note, the unfortunate disappearance of the Miller family from their farm on the outskirts of town, just weeks before the gala. Their property, the article casually stated, had subsequently been acquired by the Thorne family. There was no mention of an investigation, no concern, just a brief, dismissive note. The Millers had simply vanished. Emily reread the paragraph, her mind reeling. The sacrifice, the oaths, the protection from outside influences. And now, the sudden, unexplained disappearance of an entire family, their land conveniently absorbed by one of the founding families, around the time of an oath renewal. It was too much to be a coincidence. The pieces, horrifying as they were starting to fit together. The pledge wasn't just about preserving history. It was about maintaining power, absolute control through generations. And it seemed with chilling certainty that this control came at a terrible price. The Millers, she suspected, were not the first, and likely not the last, to pay it. And now, by uncovering this dark thread, Emily had woven herself into the very fabric of Oakhaven's most dangerous secret. The target on her back, she realized, had just grown infinitely larger. The target on her back, she realized, had just grown infinitely larger. A cold dread, unlike anything she had ever known, seeped into Emily's bones, chilling her to the core. It wasn't just the fear of being caught, or even of physical harm. It was the crushing weight of knowing she had stumbled upon a darkness so profound, so deeply entrenched in the very foundation of Oakhaven, that it threatened to swallow her whole. The ledger, now a physical manifestation of this evil, felt heavy in her trembling hands. She couldn't just leave it out. She couldn't just dismiss it. It was proof, terrifying, undeniable proof. Her apartment, usually a sanctuary, now felt like a glass cage. Every shadow seemed to deepen. Every creak of the old building sounded like a footstep. Paranoia, a new and unwelcome companion, whispered in her ear. Could they be watching her right now? Had they known she was close before she even found the ledger? The thought made her stomach clench. She needed to secure the ledger. Her eyes darted around the small space. Under the mattress? Too obvious. In a locked drawer? Easily broken. She needed something more substantial, more hidden. Her gaze landed on an old heavy oak chest passed down from her grandmother, tucked away in the corner of her bedroom. It had a false bottom, a secret compartment she had discovered as a child, meant for keepsakes. It was perfect. With trembling fingers, she carefully lifted the worn velvet lining, revealing the hollow space beneath. She placed the ledger inside, its leather cover a dark rectangle against the dusty wood, and then replaced the lining, pushing it down firmly. Out of sight, out of mind for now. But the knowledge it contained was burned into her mind, an indelible ink on her soul. Sleep was an impossibility. Her mind raced, replaying every cryptic entry, every chilling name. The pledge, the offering, the price. It all pointed to one gruesome conclusion. Oakhaven's prosperity, its idyllic charm, its unwavering good fortune, was not a coincidence. It was a trade, a macabre transaction paid in human lives. Jessica, she realized with a sickening lurch, had likely been one of those offerings. And the fact that Michael's family, the Caldwells, were among the founding families, twisted the knife deeper. Could he be involved? Had his parents, his grandparents, been complicit in this monstrous pact? The thought was almost unbearable. The next morning, exhaustion etched lines under her eyes, but a fierce resolve hardened her gaze. She couldn't go to the police. Not yet. Not with just a cryptic ledger and a wild theory connecting it to town founders. They'd think she was delusional, or worse, that she was trying to stir up trouble. She needed more hard, undeniable evidence. Her first step was to cross-reference the names in the ledger with Oakhaven's historical records. The public library, with its vast archives of old newspapers, town council minutes, and genealogical records, became her new battleground. She spent hours, days, even hunched over microfiche readers and dusty bound volumes, her laptop open for cross-referencing digital databases. She started with the names listed as offerings, then expanded to any individuals who seemed to vanish without a trace around the dates of the pledge entries. The pattern slowly began to emerge, chillingly consistent. Every 10 to 15 years, sometimes more frequently, a name would appear in the ledger. And almost without fail, around that same period, Oakhaven's local newspapers would carry a small, often overlooked article about a disappearance, a tragic accident, or an unexplained departure of a resident. These were rarely founding family members. They were often new residents, drifters, people without strong ties, or sometimes just ordinary citizens who seemed to have simply vanished. Their stories were usually brief, quickly forgotten amidst the town's otherwise tranquil narrative. One particular entry in the ledger caught her eye. Robert Miller, The Harvest of '78. A quick search revealed a news clipping about a local vagrant who disappeared from Oakhaven in the fall of 1978. The article, barely a paragraph, mentioned he had no known family and was presumed to have moved on. Emily's blood ran cold. He hadn't moved on. He had been harvested. The more she dug, the more the pieces clicked into place. The ledger entries weren't just random dates. Many coincided with significant town events, groundbreaking ceremonies for new developments, periods of unexpected economic boom, or even the recovery from minor disasters that seemed to inexplicably bypass Oakhaven. It was as if every time the town faced a challenge, a pledge was made, and an offering accepted, ensuring Oakhaven's continued prosperity. One afternoon, as she was meticulously charting these disappearances against the ledger entries, a subtle shift occurred. She'd been working late at the library, the only patron left, surrounded by the comforting scent of old paper. As she packed up her things, she noticed a book on the shelf next to her, one she was certain hadn't been there before. It was a slim volume, bound in dark blue leather, titled Oakhaven's Enduring Spirit. It wasn't part of the library's catalog. There was no call number, no stamp. Her heart hammered. She picked it up. Inside, the pages were blank save for one single, handwritten inscription on the first page. "Some truths are best left undisturbed, Emily. For your own good." Her breath hitched. It was a warning. A chilling personal warning. They knew she was digging. They knew her name. They were watching her. Closer than she could have ever imagined. She scanned the empty library, her pulse pounding in her ears. Had someone been here? Had they just left? Or had this book been placed here by someone who had access to the library after hours? The implications were terrifying. She didn't dare take the book with her. Leaving it exactly where she found it, she fled the library, her mind a whirlwind of fear and adrenaline. The quiet streets of Oakhaven, once comforting, now felt menacing. Every car that passed, every shadow that stretched long in the twilight, seemed to hold a hidden threat. Back in her apartment, she double-checked the locks, pulling the blinds tight. The warning had shaken her, but it had also fueled her resolve. They wanted her to stop? That meant she was close. Too close. She thought of Michael. His family was one of them, but he had helped her before. He had seemed genuinely concerned about Jessica. Could he be ignorant of his family's dark legacy? Or was he playing a part? She desperately wanted to trust him, but the ledger had poisoned her perception of everyone connected to the founding families. She decided to approach him, but indirectly. No mention of the ledger. No mention of the pledge. Just a subtle probe. The next day, she found an excuse to call him, feigning concern about Jessica's case. "Michael," she began, trying to keep her voice steady. "I was just thinking about Jessica. It's so strange, isn't it? How people just disappear in this town sometimes. Like that Robert Miller case from '78. Remember reading about that?" There was a pause on the other end, a beat too long. "Robert Miller?" Michael's voice was carefully neutral. "I don't think I'm familiar with that one, Emily. Oakhaven's a small town, but it has its share of transient folks. People come and go. But to just vanish without a trace? No body, no note. It's unsettling, Emily pressed, watching for any tell. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What really happens to people who just aren't here anymore? I suppose, Michael said, his tone still even, but Emily detected a subtle shift, a tightening. Look, Emily, I know you're still worried about Jessica, and I am too, but maybe it's time to let the professionals handle it. You're getting yourself worked up over old stories. The unspoken message hung in the air. Stop digging. Emily felt a chill. Was it a genuine concern for her well-being, or a subtle warning from someone who knew more than he let on? She couldn't be sure, but the conversation only reinforced her conviction. She was alone in this. That night, the threats escalated. A small, intricately carved wooden bird, a replica of Oakhaven's town symbol, a soaring hawk, was left on her doorstep. It was beautiful, but tucked underneath its wings was a single dried rose petal, a stark contrast to the vibrant, growing roses she cultivated in her window boxes. The message was clear. The rose, a symbol of life and beauty, was now dead, and the hawk, once a symbol of freedom, was now a predator watching her. The fear was no longer a cold dread. It was a burning ember in her stomach, igniting a fierce determination. They wanted her to stop. They wanted her to be scared. Too late. She was past scared. She was furious. Furious for Jessica, for Robert Miller, for all the nameless, faceless offerings who had paid the price for Oakhaven's enduring spirit. She was now an active participant in Oakhaven's dark secret, and there was no turning back. The path ahead was shrouded in shadows, but Emily knew with absolute certainty that she had to follow it to its horrifying end. The path ahead was shrouded in shadows, but Emily knew with absolute certainty that she had to follow it to its horrifying end. Emily's mind raced, a whirlwind of fragmented thoughts and unsettling images. The hushed whispers, the knowing glances, the chilling rituals, they all coalesced into a terrifying mosaic. She wasn't merely an observer anymore. She was inextricably linked to Oakhaven's dark heart. The weight of this realization pressed down on her, but with it came a strange, almost defiant clarity. She would uncover the truth, no matter the cost. Her first step was to revisit everything she knew, every scrap of information she had gathered. She spread out her notes, the copies of old town records, and the photographs she'd taken of the cryptic carvings. The phrase Oakhaven's enduring spirit echoed in her ears, no longer a poetic metaphor, but a chillingly literal descriptor. What if the spirit wasn't just a concept but something tangible, something that demanded sustenance? And what if the missing people were that sustenance? A memory flickered, a dusty passage in an architectural blueprint she glimpsed in the town archives, detailing the original construction of the Oakhaven Town Hall. It spoke of foundational integrity and symbiotic design, phrases that had seemed innocuous at the time. But now, coupled with the talk of an enduring spirit, and the strange, almost organic patterns in the carvings, they took on a sinister new meaning. The architect, a man named Thomas Miller, had been renowned for his unconventional, almost mystical approach to building, often incorporating natural elements and hidden spaces. Could he have been a part of this? Emily decided to return to the town hall. It was late, the building dark and silent. She used the spare key she'd acquired while researching the town's history, a key meant for the old historical society storeroom, which she'd realized was rarely checked. The familiar scent of old wood and dust greeted her as she slipped inside. Her flashlight beam cut through the oppressive darkness, dancing over the portraits of past mayors and the polished wooden floors. She moved with purpose, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She remembered a subtle inconsistency in the blueprint, a section of the foundation that didn't quite align with the visible structure. It was in the oldest part of the building, near the original vault where ancient town charters were supposedly kept. Following the blueprint in her mind, Emily navigated the labyrinthine corridors of the basement. The air grew colder, heavier as she descended. She found the vault, its massive steel door imposing. But she wasn't interested in the vault itself. She ran her hands along the rough stone walls adjacent to it, searching for any seam, any irregularity. Her fingers brushed against a section that felt different, slightly recessed, almost like a hidden panel. She pressed, pushed, even tapped, but nothing happened. Frustration gnawed at her. Then, she recalled a detail from Miller's architectural philosophy. His belief in natural keys, specific points of pressure or alignment that mimic natural geological formations. She looked for a pattern in the stone, a natural fault line. Her eyes landed on a series of small, almost imperceptible indentations, forming a crude constellation. She pressed them in sequence, mimicking the pattern. With a low groan, a section of the stone wall slid inward, revealing a narrow, dark passageway. A wave of ancient, musty air, thick with the scent of damp earth and something else, something metallic and faintly organic, washed over her. It was a smell that prickled the back of her throat, a scent of profound age and decay, yet also of something vital and unervingly present. This was it. This was where the shadows deepened. Emily hesitated for a breath, the cold dread threatening to paralyze her. But the image of the missing faces, the desperation in Martha's eyes, spurred her forward. She gripped her flashlight tighter and stepped into the hidden passage, the stone slab sliding shut behind her with a soft thud, plunging her into absolute darkness save for her beam. The passage sloped downwards, the air growing heavier with each step. The walls were no longer smooth stone but rough-hewn rock, damp and slick. After what felt like an eternity, the passage opened into a vast, cavernous chamber. Emily gasped, her flashlight beam sweeping across the horrifying spectacle before her. This was no mere archive. This was a subterranean sanctuary, a place of ancient, unholy reverence. The chamber was immense, its ceiling lost in shadow. Strange, glowing fungi clung to the walls, casting an eerie phosphorescent light that pulsed faintly, like a slow, deliberate heartbeat. In the center of the chamber stood an altar, not of stone, but of polished dark wood, intricately carved with symbols Emily now recognized from the town hall's cryptic carvings, intertwining vines, spiraling patterns, and abstract figures that seemed to writhe and contort. Around the altar, arranged in a chilling tableau, were several ancient, desiccated human figures, bound and positioned as if in a perpetual ritual. Their forms were skeletal, their clothes tattered, but their presence was undeniably real, a monument to the pledge's horrific history. Her beam finally settled on a series of massive, ancient tablets leaning against one wall, carved not in any known language, but in a primordial script that seemed to shift and waver before her eyes. Yet, amidst the alien symbols, she recognized certain recurring images. The town of Oakhaven, prosperous and vibrant, depicted above a deep chasm, intertwining figures, hands clasped in a pact, and most disturbingly, figures being led into the chasm, their life force seemingly flowing upward, feeding a central amorphous entity. Emily's blood ran cold. This wasn't merely a pledge between families. It was a covenant with something ancient, something beneath Oakhaven. The tablets, though indecipherable in their entirety, conveyed a horrifying truth. The founding families had struck a bargain. They had pledged to sustain this subterranean entity, this Oakhaven spirit, with the very essence of human life, in exchange for the town's prosperity, their own influence and perhaps their unnatural longevity. The missing people weren't just disappearing, they were being offered. Their enduring spirit was literally being given to this primordial power. She moved closer to the altar, her flashlight beam trembling. On a smaller, more accessible stone pedestal beside it, lay an open leather-bound journal. Unlike the ancient tablets, this was written in English, though in a careful, archaic script. It was dated, the entries spanning centuries, painstakingly detailing the offerings. The journal belonged to Thomas Miller, the architect. Emily's hands shook as she read the entries, each one a chilling testament to the town's dark secret. Miller wasn't just an architect. He was a chronicler, a keeper of the pledge. He described the cycles of replenishment, the specific astrological alignments, and the criteria for selecting the vessels, individuals whose life force resonated most strongly with the spirit. He wrote of the transferal ritual, a process that harvested the vital energy, leaving behind only the husk. Emily flipped through the pages, each entry more disturbing than the last. She saw names she recognized from Oakhaven's past, people who had vanished without a trace, their disappearances explained away as wanderlust or unfortunate accidents. Then her eyes landed on a more recent entry, dated just a few weeks prior. It detailed the observation of a new cycle of resonance, a period of heightened energy that indicated the spirit required replenishment. And then she saw it, a list of potential candidates for the next offering. Her breath hitched in her throat. The names were carefully noted, along with observations about their vitality and connection to the land. The first name on the list, circled in red, was Michael Adams, the quiet librarian, a man Emily had shared coffee with just days ago. He was a kind, unassuming soul, deeply devoted to the town's history. Ironically, But it was the next name that made Emily's blood turn to ice, making her stomach lurch with a sickening dread. Beneath Michael's name, scrawled in the same precise hand, was her own, Emily Hayes, followed by a chilling notation. Outsider but strong resonance. Potential for immediate integration. Monitor closely. She wasn't just an observer. She was a candidate. A potential offering. The ancient chamber suddenly felt suffocating. The air thick with the presence of something unspeakably old and hungry. A cold sweat broke out on her forehead. The horrifying end she had committed to following was not just a truth to uncover, but a fate that awaited her. A faint click echoed from the passage behind her, the sound of the hidden door being unlatched. Emily froze, her heart hammering so violently she thought it might burst through her ribs. She wasn't alone. Someone else knew about this place. Someone had followed her, or worse, had been waiting. The soft glow of the fungi flickered, seemingly anticipating the intrusion. A shadow stretched from the opening, distorting, growing, and then a figure emerged, tall and imposing, silhouetted against the faint light of the passage. Emily dropped the journal, her flashlight beam shaking wildly, revealing the stern, unyielding face of Henry Maxwell. His eyes, usually placid, now held a cold, knowing glint devoid of any warmth. He hadn't come to welcome her. He had come for her. The air in the cramped, dust-choked room thickened with an unspoken threat. Emily's heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat echoing in the sudden, terrifying silence. Henry Maxwell, a man she had always known as the epitome of local respectability, stood before her, his face a mask of chilling resolve. The casual warmth that usually softened his features was utterly gone, replaced by a predatory stillness. "I knew it was only a matter of time." Henry's voice was a low rumble, devoid of its usual geniality, a sound that seemed to snake through the musty air and coil around Emily's throat. "You truly are your mother's daughter, Emily. Always digging, always questioning what should remain buried." Emily scrambled backward, tripping over the fallen journal, her hands flailing to catch herself. The flashlight beam, still clutched in her trembling hand, danced across the unsettling carvings on the stone wall, then flickered over Henry's impassive face. "Henry? What are you doing here? How did you know?" A faint, humorless smile touched Henry's lips, a gesture that only deepened the coldness in his eyes. "How do you think? This house, it has ears and eyes. It remembers who belongs and who doesn't. And I, Emily, am one who belongs. One of the protectors." He took a slow, deliberate step forward, his shadow looming large in the beam of her light. "You weren't supposed to find this place. No one was. It's been hidden for generations, a sanctuary for the truth that must never see the light of day." He gestured vaguely at the journal lying at her feet. "And that is the key to everything we've worked so hard to preserve. The very fabric of our town, our families, our legacy." Emily's mind raced, a whirlwind of fear and dawning comprehension. "The journal, it's about the pledge, isn't it? The real pledge, not the one they tell everyone." Henry's gaze sharpened, a flicker of surprise in his cold eyes before it was quickly masked. "Clever girl. You've read enough then. Enough to be dangerous. Enough to understand why certain sacrifices have had to be made." His voice dropped to a near whisper, yet each word was an icy jab. "Why your mother had to be silenced. Why Michael had to disappear." A gasp tore from Emily's lips. "My mother? Michael? You were involved." The accusation hung heavy in the air, laced with a terror so profound it threatened to paralyze her. Her mother's accident, Michael's sudden vanishing, it hadn't been random. It had been orchestrated. By them. By Henry. Involved. Henry chuckled, a dry, mirthless sound. "Emily, we are the pledge. We are the families. We are the town. And we do what is necessary to maintain the balance, to uphold the ancient promise. The prosperity, the peace, the very existence of Havenwood depends on it. A few lives, a few truths, they are a small price to pay for the greater good." He took another step, closing the distance between them. Emily instinctively recoiled, her back hitting the rough stone wall. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and old secrets. "That journal, it contains the full accounting. The true terms of the pledge, the sacrifices, the methods. It speaks of the harvest, doesn't it? The annual renewal of the bond, the price paid to ensure our continued favor." Emily's mind reeled. The harvest. She'd seen that word in the journal, coupled with cryptic dates and symbols. She dismissed it as some archaic ritual, a metaphor perhaps. But Henry's tone, his chilling implication, painted a far more sinister picture. It wasn't a metaphor. It was real. And it was happening. What is the harvest? She stammered, her voice barely a whisper. Henry's expression darkened further. It's not for you to know, Emily. It's for us to ensure. And it is something that must remain hidden from the unenlightened, from those who would see our traditions as barbaric, our prosperity as ill-gotten. Your mother learned too much. She started asking questions just like you. She found things just like you. He looked at the journal. She was trying to expose us. We couldn't allow it. The consequences for everyone would have been catastrophic. He reached down, his hand slowly extending towards the journal. Emily's heart leaped into her throat. If he got that journal, she'd lose her only leverage, her only proof. And Michael, she pressed, desperate to keep him talking, to buy herself time to understand. Henry sighed, a sound of weary resignation, as if explaining this was a chore. Michael, he was a loose end. A mistake. He was too close to your mother's research, too curious about the accidents that plagued the town's past. He began to connect the dots, to see the pattern in the disappearances, the illnesses, the unfortunate turns of fate that befell anyone who threatened the established order. He was going to follow in your mother's footsteps, to reveal the truth. We couldn't permit it. Emily felt a wave of nausea. Her mother, Michael, all victims of this ancient, terrible secret. And now she was next. Her eyes darted around the tiny room, searching for an escape, a weapon, anything. The air was thick with ancient dust and the metallic tang of fear. You won't get away with this, Emily whispered, finding a sliver of defiance amidst her terror. People will know. David knows I'm here. He'll come looking for me. She clutched the flashlight tighter, its beam shaking so violently it was almost useless. Henry let out another low chuckle. David? A good boy but easily misled. He believes in the system, Emily. He believes in the families. He won't even know what to look for, let alone where. Besides, by the time he figures anything out, it will be too late. For you and for the journal. His hand was now just inches from the leather-bound book. Emily knew she had only seconds. With a surge of adrenaline, she kicked out, catching Henry's shin. He grunted in surprise, stumbling backward just enough. In that split second, Emily lunged, not for the door but for the journal. Her fingers closed around the worn leather, pulling it close to her chest. Give it to me, Emily. Henry's voice was no longer calm, but laced with a chilling edge of command. Don't make this harder than it has to be. He recovered quickly, his eyes narrowing to slits. Emily scrambled to her feet, clutching the journal. She glanced at the hidden doorway, the one she'd painstakingly opened. It was a narrow gap, barely wide enough for her to squeeze through. Never! She cried, her voice cracking with fear and desperation. She bolted towards the opening, squeezing through the tight space. The rough stone scraped against her clothes, but she barely registered the pain. She was back in the main secret tunnel, the one that led deeper into the house's hidden passages. Henry was right behind her, his footsteps heavy and relentless. You can't escape, Emily. This house is a labyrinth, and I know every twist, every turn. Emily didn't respond. She pushed herself harder, her lungs burning, her heart a frantic drum solo in her chest. She remembered the general direction of the tunnel, the one that led towards the old cellar, towards a potential exit. She didn't know if it was truly an exit, but it was away from Henry, away from the terrifying truth he embodied. The tunnel was dark, even with her flashlight, which was now flickering precariously. The air grew colder, damper, carrying the faint scent of decay. She heard Henry's heavy breathing behind her, closer now. He was faster than she expected. Panic threatened to overwhelm her, but the image of her mother, of Michael, spurred her on. She had to expose this. She had to. Suddenly, a faint, rhythmic thudding sound echoed from ahead, growing steadily louder. It wasn't Henry's footsteps. It was a different sound, a more deliberate, purposeful tread. Emily hesitated, her heart leaping. Was it another of them? Another protector? Or was it, Emily? Are you down here? A voice, clear and familiar, cut through the oppressive darkness, echoing down the tunnel. It was David. Emily's breath hitched. Relief, profound and dizzying, washed over her, quickly followed by a fresh wave of terror. David. He was here. He was walking right into a trap. Behind her, Henry Maxwell stopped abruptly. The heavy footsteps ceased. A low growl escaped his lips. "David," he murmured, his voice laced with venomous frustration. Emily didn't waste another second. "David, no. Get out of here. It's a trap," she screamed, her voice hoarse, pushing herself forward into the darkness, towards the sound of his approaching footsteps, towards the faint glimmer of another flashlight beam that now appeared in the distance. She had to warn him. She had to save him. But Henry was still behind her, and now David was walking directly towards the very heart of the danger. Every muscle in Sarah's legs screamed in protest, but in primal fear, cold and sharp, propelled her forward. The sound of Henry's heavy breathing and the rhythmic thud of his boots were a terrifying rhythm section to the chaotic drum of her own heart. She risked a glance over her shoulder, the beam of his flashlight momentarily blinding her before she swerved, stumbling over a gnarled root. She caught herself, scraped and bruised, but didn't break stride. David. She had to reach David. He was walking into a trap, a meticulously laid snare by people who clearly had no qualms about silencing anyone who threatened their secrets. The faint glimmer of the other flashlight beam grew stronger, piercing through the dense foliage like a predatory eye. It wasn't just a light. It was an invitation to the abyss. She imagined David, focused and determined, his mind likely piecing together the fragments of the puzzle they'd found, oblivious to the immediate, tangible peril ahead. He wouldn't be looking for a person not like this. He'd be looking for a clue, another symbol, another hidden passage. "David!" She tried to scream, but her voice was a raw, choked whisper swallowed by the forest. The sound of Henry behind her was too close, too persistent. If she cried out, she'd alert Henry to her exact position. And worse, she might alert whoever was with David. She needed to be silent, swift, and effective. Meanwhile, David, flashlight beam cutting a confident path, pushed through a curtain of overgrown ivy, revealing a small, almost perfectly circular clearing. In the center, a gnarled ancient oak stood sentinel, its lower branches thick like the arms of a colossal guardian. And standing beneath it, a figure. Not a shadow, not a silhouette, but a man, his face illuminated by the powerful beam of his own flashlight, pointed directly at David. The man was tall, well-built, with a shock of silver hair and eyes that held the chilling clarity of polished stone. He wore a heavy dark jacket despite the mild night air. There was an unnerving stillness about him, a sense of deep-seated authority that radiated even in the dim light. "Well, well, well." The man's voice was a low rumble, surprisingly calm, yet laced with an undeniable edge of menace. "It seems the prodigal son has returned, or at least a curious descendant." David froze, his own flashlight beam unwavering. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice steady despite the sudden spike of adrenaline. He scanned the clearing, looking for any other movement, any other threat. There was none, just the man, the ancient oak, and the oppressive silence of the woods. The man smiled, a slow, humorless baring of teeth. "My name is Thomas Miller, and I believe you've been looking for me, or at least for answers that lead to me." He gestured vaguely at the ground around the oak. "This is sacred ground, David. Ground that has been protected for generations." Sarah, scrambling through the last few meters of undergrowth, finally reached the edge of the clearing. She ducked behind a thick cluster of rhododendrons, heart hammering against her ribs. She could see David facing Thomas Miller. The name sent a jolt through her. Miller. Another founding family. This was it. The confrontation she had feared. The one they had stumbled towards blindly. "Protected," David repeated, a hint of disdain in his voice. "Or hidden. From what I've gathered, your family, along with a few others, has been hiding a monumental truth from the town, from the world for centuries." Thomas chuckled, a dry, rasping sound. "Truth is a subjective thing, young man. What you perceive as a truth might simply be a necessary concealment, a shield against chaos." He took a step closer to David, his eyes narrowing. "You've been quite thorough, haven't you? Digging into old records, disturbing forgotten graves, questioning the very foundations of our community. A dangerous hobby, I assure you." "People have a right to know," David countered, gripping his flashlight tighter, ready to use it as a weapon if necessary. "About the land, about the resources, about the real reasons this town was founded." "The real reasons?" Thomas scoffed, shaking his head slowly. "You think you understand the real reasons from a few dusty ledgers and a cryptic will? You have no idea, David. No idea of the true weight of the pledge. Just then, a twig snapped loudly behind Sarah. Henry! He had caught up. Her breath hitched. She was trapped. Thomas Miller was in front of David, and Henry was directly behind her. She was a deer caught between two hunters. Sarah! Henry's voice was a triumphant snarl, closer than she thought possible. He burst through the foliage, his flashlight beam sweeping wildly before settling on her, pinned behind the bushes. David's head snapped towards the sound, his eyes wide with alarm. Sarah! He exclaimed, recognizing her voice, understanding the immediate danger she was in. Thomas Miller's gaze flickered from David to Henry, then to Sarah, a flicker of cold amusement in his eyes. Ah, the whole team. How convenient. Saves us the trouble of hunting you down separately. He turned his full attention back to David. It seems your little adventure has brought you more than just historical documents, hasn't it? It's brought you directly to us. And to the truth. Henry grabbed Sarah roughly by the arm, yanking her out from behind the bushes. She stumbled, crying out as the thorny branches scratched her skin. He held her in a vice-like grip, his breath ragged. I told you to stay put, little bird. Now look what you've done. Let her go, Henry. David roared, taking a step forward. Thomas Miller raised a hand, stopping David. Easy, easy. No need for heroics just yet. Let's have a little chat, shall we? About this pledge you're so obsessed with. He gestured to the ancient oak. This tree, David, is a living monument to that pledge. It was here when the first families arrived, long before any land grants were officially drawn up. What pledge? Sarah managed to gasp, struggling against Henry's grip, her eyes darting between him, David, and the unerringly calm Thomas Miller. The pledge of the founding families, Thomas began, his voice dropping to a near whisper, yet carrying an immense weight. It wasn't a pledge to a king, or to a new nation. It was a pledge to this place, to protect it, to nurture it, and most importantly, to keep its true nature a secret at all costs. He paused, letting his words hang in the air, thick with unspoken meaning. You see, David, Sarah, our ancestors didn't just come here seeking religious freedom or fertile land. They came here because they were chosen to be the guardians of something ancient, something powerful, something that predates all recorded history. David's mind raced, trying to process Thomas's words. Guardians of what? What are you talking about? The source, Thomas stated, his gaze sweeping across the clearing, as if indicating the very ground beneath their feet. The reason this valley flourishes beyond all reason. The reason the water is so pure, the soil so rich, the air so invigorating. It's not just natural abundance, David. It's a concentrated nexus of raw, untamed energy, a wellspring of life itself. Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. This wasn't just about land or money. This was something far deeper, far more esoteric. Our ancestors discovered it, Thomas continued, his voice gaining a fervor, a hint of fanaticism. They understood its potential, its immense power to heal, to sustain, to influence. But they also understood its danger. In the wrong hands, it could be corrupted, exploited, become a weapon of unparalleled destruction. So they made a solemn vow, a sacred pledge passed down through generations, to protect the source, to harness its benefits for the chosen few, and to ensure its existence remained an absolute secret. You mean, David interjected, his voice laced with disgust, you've been hoarding this source for yourselves? Exploiting it while the rest of the world struggles, and silencing anyone who gets close to the truth. Thomas's smile returned, colder this time. Exploiting is such a harsh word. We've been stewards, David. Stewards of a power that would overwhelm lesser minds. The prosperity of our families, the longevity, the influence we've wielded throughout history, it all stems from here. He gestured to the ground again. The land grants, the founding of the town, all elaborate cover stories. Misdirection. The real purpose was always to secure this location, to create a protective shell around it. So the symbols, Sarah whispered, finally finding her voice, the pieces clicking into place with a horrifying clarity. The symbols in the will, the ones carved into the trees, they weren't just markers. They were a map to this source. Precisely, Thomas confirmed, a glint in his eye. A map that only a true descendant, one who possessed the innate curiosity and stubbornness of the original founders, could follow. We knew someone would eventually come looking. It was inevitable, but we also knew that anyone who followed the trail would either join us in our sacred duty or be removed. Henry's grip tightened painfully on Sarah's arm. And you, little bird, you're just an unfortunate bystander who got too close. And what about the other families? David pressed, his mind reeling from the magnitude of the revelation. The ones who disappeared? The ones who resisted your pledge? Thomas sighed, a theatrical gesture of regret. Some, unfortunately, lacked the foresight, the commitment. They threatened the sanctity of the secret. They learned too much, or intended to reveal too much. We couldn't allow that. The pledge demands absolute discretion, absolute loyalty. The full weight of their situation descended upon Sarah. They weren't just dealing with a land dispute or a historical cover-up. They had stumbled into a generations-old conspiracy, a secret society guarding an unimaginable power, and they had just been told in no uncertain terms that they were now a liability. So you're saying, David started, his voice hardening, that you've been murdering people for centuries to keep this secret? Thomas's expression remained unperturbed. We prefer to call it preserving the integrity of the pledge, a necessary sacrifice for the greater good of this power, and by extension, for the continued prosperity of our lineage. He took another slow step towards David, his eyes fixed on him with an unnerving intensity. And now, David, Sarah, you stand at a crossroads. You can either choose to understand, to embrace the truth and join us in our sacred duty, or you can become another one of those unfortunate souls who threaten the sanctity of the secret. The air in the clearing crackled with unspoken threats. Sarah could feel Henry's hot breath on her neck, his grip an iron band. David stood defiant but outmatched, facing a man who spoke of murder with casual indifference. The ancient oak loomed above them, a silent witness to centuries of secrets and the chilling reality of the founding family's true pledge. They were trapped, caught between a fanatical guardian and a ruthless enforcer, and the very ground beneath their feet held a secret that could either save or destroy them. The very ground beneath their feet, a subtle tremor in the ancient stone, seemed to hum with the weight of generations of secrets and the chilling reality of the founding family's true pledge. They were trapped, caught between a fanatical guardian and a ruthless enforcer, and the very ground beneath their feet held a secret that could either save or destroy them. Michael's eyes darted around the opulent library, the last place they had sought refuge. Every antique book, every meticulously placed artifact, now felt like a taunt. Jessica, her breath ragged, pointed to a faint, almost invisible seam in the polished marble floor near a massive illuminated globe. It was the same symbol they'd seen etched on the locket, on the hidden compartments on the family crests. A stylized compass rose, pointing not north but inward. The pledge, Jessica whispered, her voice barely audible above the distant, approaching footsteps. It's a promise, but also a direction. Michael knelt, tracing the symbol. He remembered Mrs. Albright's strange obsession with the grandfather clock in the study, always set to a specific, anachronistic time. He remembered a recurring phrase in the journal they found, a cryptic reference to the heart of the rose at the turning of the tide. He pressed on the center of the compass rose, then looked at the globe. A small, almost imperceptible panel on the globe, near a tiny, unmarked island, sprang open. Inside, a single ornate key. As the heavy thud of Gabriel's boots echoed closer, Michael inserted the key into a hidden lock beneath the compass rose. With a low groan of ancient mechanisms, a section of the floor, encompassing the entire globe and a small circular area, began to descend. Dust motes danced in the slivers of light that pierced the gloom below. Quickly, Michael urged, pulling Jessica into the descending chamber just as the library doors burst open. Gabriel stood silhouetted in the doorway, a chillingly calm expression on his face, a hand already reaching for the weapon at his hip. Behind him, Evelyn's eyes blazed with a manic fervor. The platform continued its slow descent, plunging them into absolute darkness, the library above receding into a rapidly shrinking circle of light. The air grew heavy, cool, and thick with the scent of damp earth and something sterile metallic. When the platform finally settled with a soft hiss, they found themselves in a vast, subterranean cavern. It was unlike anything they could have imagined. Not a musty crypt or a dusty archive, but a sprawling high-tech facility humming with an otherworldly energy. Rows upon rows of towering server racks glowed with a soft, pulsing blue light, stretching into the distance like an endless digital forest. Screens of all sizes displayed intricate algorithms, swirling data visualizations, complex predictive models, and constantly updating timelines. Cables thick as pythons snaked across the floor and up the walls, connecting everything in a dizzying web. "What is this place?" Jessica breathed, her voice a mixture of awe and terror. "This," Michael said, stepping forward, his eyes scanning the bewildering array of information, "is the engine of their pledge." On a central holographic display, a massive, intricate family tree blossomed, not just for the founding families, but for dozens, hundreds, thousands of other prominent American families, politicians, industrialists, scientists, artists, military leaders. Lines of influence, denoted by different colors, crisscrossed between individuals, highlighting connections, alliances, rivalries, and carefully orchestrated marriages. Beside it, a constantly updating projection showed future economic trends, political landscapes, and even global conflicts, all with subtle, almost imperceptible nodes of manipulation originating from the founding family's lineage. They stared, mesmerized and horrified, as they saw their own names, their own families, appear on one of the smaller peripheral screens. Their lives, their choices, their very destinies had been charted, analyzed, and subtly nudged by this unseen hand. The pledge wasn't just about protecting their own wealth, it was about engineering society itself. They weren't just preserving their legacy, Jessica whispered, a cold dread seeping into her bones. They were creating it. For everyone. Michael walked closer to the central display. He saw a series of projections, labeled Project Chimera, Project Oracle, Project Shepherd. Each detailed a different aspect of their manipulation. Chimera appeared to be genetic, tracking specific traits, propensities, and even potential health issues across generations, ensuring the right bloodlines intermingled. Oracle was clearly predictive, using vast datasets to foresee future events and identify leverage points. Shepherd was the most insidious, a constant low-level influence campaign, shaping public opinion, funding specific research, subtly guiding policy decisions, all to maintain the stability and order that benefited the architects of this hidden world. As they absorbed the horrifying scope of the operation, a sudden metallic clang echoed from the platform above. They looked up to see Gabriel and Evelyn descending, their faces illuminated by the blue glow of the servers. Gabriel held a sleek, silenced pistol. Evelyn clutched a heavy, leather-bound book, her eyes alight with a zealous, almost spiritual fervor. "Welcome." Gabriel's voice was calm, almost conversational, amplified by the vast chamber. "To the heart of our legacy, the true testament to the vision of the founding families." He gestured around the cavern, a possessive smile playing on his lips. "You've seen enough to understand, I presume. This isn't merely about power or wealth. Those are transient. This is about order, about guiding humanity away from its self-destructive tendencies, about ensuring the right minds, the right hands are always at the helm." Evelyn stepped forward, her voice rising in pitch. "The chaos of the world, the whims of the unguided masses, it is a disease. Our ancestors, in their infinite wisdom, saw this. They made a solemn pledge, to be the shepherds, to cultivate a garden where others would sow only weeds." She clutched the book to her chest. "This is our scripture. This is our divine right." Michael felt a surge of cold fury. "Divine right? You've been manipulating lives, controlling destinies for centuries. You've stolen free will from generations, all in the name of your twisted order." Gabriel merely chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. "Free will is an illusion, Michael, a dangerous one. We simply provide the optimal path. We ensure prosperity, stability, and progress. Imagine the alternative. Imagine the true anarchy if we were not here, subtly correcting the course, preventing disaster." He raised the pistol, its dark barrel glinting in the pale blue light. "You too are a variable, an anomaly. You stumbled upon something you were never meant to see. And now, you represent a threat to the equilibrium we have meticulously maintained." Jessica's eyes narrowed. "So you'll just silence us? Erase us from your optimal path?" "Reluctantly," Gabriel said, a hint of genuine regret in his tone. "But necessarily. Our work is too vital. The pledge is too sacred. It transcends individual lives, even our own." He glanced at Evelyn, who nodded in fervent agreement. "We are merely instruments of a greater design." Michael's gaze flickered to the screens, to the endless streams of data, to the projected futures. He saw a small, flashing red alert on one of the monitors near the central display. It was an anomaly marker tracing their own movements, their own unexpected deviations. He also saw a small, almost hidden icon, a single glowing red button labeled System Override. It was a long shot, a desperate gamble, but it was their only chance. They were trapped, caught between the chilling logic of a ruthless enforcer and the fanatical devotion of a guardian, in a place that held the very reins of destiny. The ground beneath their feet, now revealed as the heart of their enemy's power, could indeed destroy them, but it also offered a terrifying, fleeting possibility for salvation. The ground beneath their feet, now revealed as the heart of their enemy's power, could indeed destroy them, but it also offered a terrifying, fleeting possibility for salvation. David, Emily, Michael, and Jessica moved with a desperate urgency through the sterile metallic corridors, the air thick with the hum of unseen machinery. The further they descended, the more the hum intensified, resonating deep within their bones, a low, constant thrum that felt both ancient and impossibly advanced. It was the sound of a living machine, a monstrous engine powering a generations-old deceit. They reached a vast circular chamber, its walls pulsing with an ethereal blue-green light that cast long dancing shadows. In the center, a massive crystalline structure rose from the floor, intricate conduits snaking from its base into the surrounding walls. It wasn't a vault in the traditional sense, but a colossal energy conductor. And suspended within its glowing core, encased in a shimmering field, was Sarah. Her eyes were closed, her expression serene, almost blissful, as if dreaming a beautiful dream. But the subtle rhythmic pulse of the crystal structure seemed to draw something from her. A faint, almost imperceptible shimmer of light that flowed from her body into the glowing core. This was the ritual. This was the pledge. Mark stood before the crystal, his back to them, his hands outstretched, bathed in the same eerie light. He wasn't performing a sacrifice in the gruesome sense, but facilitating a transfer. He turned slowly, a chilling calm on his face. "You're too late," he stated, his voice echoing with a strange, almost religious fervor. "The cycle is complete. The town will prosper for another generation." "What have you done to her?" David demanded, his voice raw with fury and fear. Emily's gaze was fixed on the crystal, her mind racing, piecing together the fragmented clues. "It's not a sacrifice of life, is it?" she whispered, her voice tight with dawning horror. "It's a sacrifice of potential, of destiny." Mark smiled, a chillingly benevolent expression. "Precisely, Miss Davis. The founding families, my ancestors, discovered a unique energy signature beneath this land, a wellspring of fortune, prosperity, and innovation. But it demands a tithe, a transfer of the purest potential from a chosen descendant. Not to harm them, mind you, but to redirect their extraordinary future into the collective good of the town. Sarah, she possesses an unparalleled capacity for greatness, a perfect conduit. You're stealing their lives." Jessica cried out, aghast. "Their future, their chance to become who they were meant to be." "We are ensuring the town has a future," Mark countered, his voice rising. "Every success, every innovation, every stroke of luck our town has enjoyed for centuries has been fueled by this. The pledge was a promise. Prosperity for all, maintained by the greatest among us. A necessary exchange for the greater good." Michael, ever the pragmatist, was already scanning the intricate machinery with a portable device. "This isn't magic, it's technology," he muttered, pointing to the conduits. "An advanced energy transfer system, disguised by ritual and secrecy. It's siphoning off Sarah's neural energy, her unique brainwave patterns, her very essence of potential, and disseminating it into the town's subtle energy grid." "And the Guardian?" Emily asked, her eyes darting around the chamber. Mark gestured to the crystalline structure itself. "The Guardian is the system, an autonomous mechanism designed by the original families, sustained by the very energy it collects. It ensures the pledge is upheld, the balance maintained. It is the heart of our prosperity, and it cannot be stopped without dire consequences." "What consequences?" David pressed, his hand gripping a heavy wrench he'd picked up earlier. "The prosperity will cease," Mark explained, a note of warning in his voice. "The fortune will dissipate. Our town will become just another forgotten place, crumbling under the weight of its own mediocrity. Perhaps worse, the energy must flow. It must be replenished. To break the pledge is to condemn us all." A sudden tremor shook the chamber, and the blue-green light intensified, casting a harsh glare. Sarah stirred slightly within her shimmering prison. "We have to stop it," David declared, moving towards the crystal. "You cannot," Mark said, stepping in his path. "The Guardian is self-aware, self-preserving. Any attempt to disrupt the core will result in a catastrophic overload, releasing the accumulated energy in an uncontrolled burst. The entire underground complex would explode, and with it, the town above." The words hung heavy in the air, a chilling ultimatum. Destroy the system, save Sarah, but doom the town. Or let the system continue, sacrificing Sarah's future for the town's prosperity. This was the terrifying choice, the core of the pledge. "There has to be another way," Emily insisted, her eyes searching frantically. "A failsafe, a way to disarm it without destroying everything." Michael pointed to a complex panel embedded in the base of the crystal, glowing with intricate symbols. "This is the control interface. It's incredibly secure, but it's the only way to manually override the energy transfer without triggering a meltdown. If we can reroute the energy, dissipate it safely." "It's impossible," Mark scoffed. "Only a direct descendant of the original architect with the specific genetic markers can interface with that panel. It's part of the Guardian's security." Emily's eyes widened. "The original architect, my ancestor Alastair Davis, was one of the key engineers behind the town's infrastructure, its unique power grid. He was obsessed with harnessing natural energy sources." She looked at the panel, then at her own hands. "I'm a direct descendant." "Even if you are," Mark sneered, "the Guardian won't allow it. It's programmed to protect the pledge. Its defenses are formidable." As if on cue, metallic tendrils snaked out from the walls, glowing with the same eerie blue-green light, heading directly for Emily. "Get back," David yelled, swinging the wrench. He managed to deflect one tendril, but another snaked past him, lashing out at Emily. Jessica pulled her back just in time. "Michael, can you create a diversion? Anything to buy Emily some time," David shouted. "I can try to overload a secondary conduit, disrupt its focus," Michael replied, already scrambling to a nearby junction box, his fingers flying across his device. A series of sparks erupted from the box as Michael worked, drawing the tendrils' attention. David and Jessica fought desperately, using whatever they could find to fend off the metallic strands, which moved with surprising speed and force. Emily, seizing the moment, rushed to the control panel. Her fingers, guided by instinct and perhaps a latent genetic memory, traced the glowing symbols. A faint hum resonated as her hand made contact, and the panel shifted, revealing a complex array of holographic controls. "It's recognizing me," she gasped, her face illuminated by the ethereal light. "It's asking for a sequence, a specific pattern of energy manipulation." Mark, seeing his centuries-old legacy threatened, lunged at Emily. "You will not break the pledge." David intercepted him, tackling Mark to the ground. They struggled, fists flying, the weight of generations of conflict in their desperate clash. "Emily, hurry," Jessica cried as a tendril wrapped around her leg, tightening its grip. Emily's brow furrowed in intense concentration. She saw a schematic, a diagram of the energy flow, and a series of pulsating nodes. It was a complex puzzle, a lock designed to be opened only by one who understood its intrinsic logic. She had to reroute the energy, not stop it. To stop it would be destruction. To reroute it, to find a new path for the wellspring of potential. "I see it," she murmured, her eyes wide with understanding. The pledge wasn't just about taking. It was about balance. The founders tried to control it, but the energy itself, it wants to flow freely. We have to release it. With a sudden, decisive motion, Emily pressed a sequence of holographic buttons. The crystalline structure pulsed violently. Sarah's shimmering prison flickered, then vanished, and she slumped to the floor, breathing heavily, her eyes fluttering open. The blue-green light in the chamber began to dim, then shifted, pulsating with a softer golden hue. The metallic tendrils retracted, shrinking back into the walls, their aggressive glow fading. The intense hum of the machinery softened into a gentle, almost benevolent thrum. David, seeing Sarah free, finally managed to overpower Mark, pinning him against the wall. Mark stared at the changing light, his face a mixture of shock and dawning horror. "What have you done?" he whispered, his voice devoid of its former conviction. "I haven't destroyed the energy," Emily explained, stepping back from the panel, her body trembling with exertion. "I've rerouted it." released it from its confined state. The pledge was a contract to control the town's destiny. I've broken that contract. Now the potential, the fortune. It will flow naturally, not be siphoned and controlled by a select few. It will be shared by everyone, freely given, freely earned. The golden light intensified, filling the chamber with a warm, comforting glow. Sarah slowly pushed herself up, looking around with a dazed expression, then at David. David, what happened? He rushed to her, pulling her into a tight embrace. It's over, Sarah. It's finally over. The energy field in the center of the chamber began to coalesce, reforming into a smaller, more intricate golden orb humming softly. It was no longer a machine of control, but a beacon of pure, unadulterated potential, radiating warmth and light. The guardian, now transformed, no longer demanded a tithe, but offered its bounty freely. In the days that followed, the revelation of the founding family's true pledge sent shockwaves through the town. Mark and his inner circle were exposed, their centuries-long manipulation laid bare. The town grappled with a truth that redefined its entire history. Some mourned the loss of their guaranteed prosperity, fearing an uncertain future. Others rejoiced in their newfound freedom. The weight of a hidden burden lifted. The golden orb remained, deep beneath the town, a silent testament to the energy that still flowed, but now without coercion. The town didn't instantly crumble. Instead, it slowly, subtly began to change. The rapid, almost unnatural growth slowed. The relentless luck became more nuanced, more clearly tied to effort and genuine innovation. People started to value hard work and community spirit over an unseen, inherited advantage. David, Emily, Michael, and Jessica became reluctant heroes, the catalyst for a profound shift. They had unveiled a mystery that had shaped generations, a thriller that had played out in the very fabric of their lives. They had broken a dark pledge and in so doing, had given the town something far more valuable than guaranteed prosperity: genuine self-determination. The legacy of the founding families was no longer one of hidden control and stolen potential, but a cautionary tale. A reminder that true value doesn't come from a secret pact or a hidden machine, but from the choices made by individuals, the courage to seek truth, and the unwavering belief in a future built on freedom, not on a promise made in the shadows. The town, once bound by a silent, insidious contract, was finally truly free. Its destiny, for the first time in centuries, was truly its own.